So new patch is coming out soon, and all the cool kids have been playing PTR. There's been a lot of different comps tried in pugs, but probably the most common one is a development of the double shield that seems to have claimed the spot of best deathball comp. The first thing to understand is that two things in Overwatch have been really strong recently. One is shields, which hit a sort of critical mass when Sigma was added, and the second is range DPS. We've seen steady increases to sustained and burst damage potential from ranged heroes, increases that have been sort of hidden by the strengths of shields and brawl comps over the past few metas. But with this new patch, that's probably going to change. The Orisa Sigma comp really abused the strength of shields to force a meta, but now shields have been nerfed, this comp looks to really abuse that range damage potential instead. First you have rein+orisa as tanks. These are pretty constant for reasons we'll talk about in a minute. On support you have Zen and Baptiste. The Zen can flex, but versus Deathball we generally see these two. And the DPS are a bit freer, but Mei Hanzo seems to be the best duo. McCree swaps can be really good too, but unfortunately the legs are going to have to wait. As you can probably see, this comp has absolutely nuts range potential. 5 players on this team are going to be putting out constant pressure versus shields and any enemies outside of it. As well as the sustained pressure too, you have a lot of burst options that let you really hard focus down targets. It's so difficult to outpug this comp that any traditional deathball is going to have to chase it down to win fights. But really that's the sort of thing this comp is built for, because as the enemy close distance you have so many tools to buy time for your damage potential to win the fight. Once the enemy push past your Orisa shield you can start kiting with Rein. Here we really see the strength of comboing a static shield with a mobile one. Remember too that Rein's movement speed buff also happens while moving backwards, and so enemies are going to really struggle to extend around your shield to hit you as you're kiting back. You then have halts and Mei walls to buy more time, then finally once the enemy really push onto your tanks and you have to stand your ground with Fortify, you can toss in Bap's Immortality Field and really make the enemy team unhappy. This entire time, your backline DPS potential is going to be hammering the enemy team. Enemy shields with the new HP are going to break, and your team are going to find picks or just burn down the enemy tanks that are really extending to reach your own. Remember too, the heroes on this team don't have to stand together to get stuff done, so your ranged heroes aren't really at any risk of getting caught by an engage. Similar to how brawl comps like goats and double shield use the objective to drag enemy teams into a brawl they couldn't win, this comp uses range pressure to force enemies to run a sort of gauntlet of damage they don't really stand much of a chance in. This patch might be the one that changes the default playstyle of forcing objectives to one of forcing engages instead. One last thing about this comp is how the ultimates really comfortably fit into its default. For Bongo, obviously you just play the same, but this time with a 6-player damage boost. Shatter is really going to benefit from the extensive shield pressure, and the DPS both have AoE ults you can combo with Halt that are really effective versus teams extending into you. You can catch their team in a blizzard, or split them in half with Dragon and isolate targets. Trance is the same as usual, you can use it versus enemy ults or as a final step to buy even more time after the Immortality Field gets destroyed. But the one I really like is Baptiste Matrix. This combo here is a bit gimmicky, but it's also really difficult to counter, especially if you're trying to push a team. All you have to know is 200 HP Fire Strike. Enemy starts pushing, window comes out, Halt comes in, boosted Fire Strike one hits any squishes in its path. Cracks me up every time. This comp has a really strong default, so if you're struggling to work out what to run in new patch, especially on those more deathball centered maps like King's Row, give this one a try and see how it works out.